Hello, and thank you in advance for watching my video. A topic I find worthwhile is exploring the dynamics of how people engage with their worldview and religion. And I hope that this video reflects why I find some of them problematic. I have a different definition of a good person. Or at the very least, two different ones that have the possibility of clashing. One being a respectable person, a person who is consistent with their personal constitution and values, and another that tries to live a life in service of others while not neglecting their own desires. But quite frankly, it's the respect that I lend more power to. Standards of good and bad are subjective. It's hard to interpret the intentions of people. But you can often easily see if someone is being inconsistent. It's difficult to remain true to your ideals, and that demands admiration from me. I dislike double standards. Maybe a part of me feels attacked or personally affected whenever I hear them, and I do hear them often. I am at least quick to challenge those standards, you could say, at the cost of my social life. Double standards are a symptom of inconsistency, an indication of shallow thought on any given topic, and lower my trust in a person's ability to think logically, at least after it's pointed out and they double down on their position. I am inconsistent too. But I do course correct. When my words are thrown back on my face, it does throw me for a loop, but it also brings a smile to my face. Long introduction aside, this leads to one of the biggest contentions I have in this world. And it is with regards to religion. I will try and be fair, because I would appreciate a similar grace offered my way, but it really is frustrating, experiencing the many cognitive failures many religious people exercise in the attempted observation of their faith. I mean no disrespect, but I don't respect it either. I could sit and talk for days about how particular faiths are forced into societal opinions that honestly bear no benefit to the modern day. Ironically, let's look at the past to highlight this. In the 16th century, a man named Nicolaus Copernicus proposed an idea, challenging the long-standing belief that the Earth was the center of the universe, a view that had been upheld by the Church for centuries, based on certain biblical interpretations. The Catholic Church at the time held great authority, and the idea of the Earth moving around the Sun seemed not just wrong, but heretical. Galileo Galilei, an Italian astronomer, later built upon Copernicus's work, using a telescope to observe the heavens and find further evidence of heliocentrism. Galileo's discoveries, however, were met with fierce opposition. In 1633, the Catholic Church actually put him on trial for heresy. Why? Because his findings contradicted the established interpretation of Scripture. The Church, in its pride and tradition, could not accept that its long-held beliefs might be wrong. At the time, the Church was more concerned with preserving its authority than with adapting to new knowledge. It wasn't until centuries later, in 1992, that the Vatican officially acknowledged the mistake and cleared Galileo's name, but by then, the damage had been done. The Church had fought against a scientific truth for far too long, and in the process, they lost credibility. This story highlights the danger of clinging to beliefs, especially when those beliefs are based on interpretations that might not stand the test of time or evidence. The same kind of cognitive dissonance I see in certain religious circles today, rejecting new truths because they don't fit the old narrative. When I was younger, my parents went to a funeral. I snuck into their room and noticed my father left his phone, so in the dark room I played a game on it. They returned the next day, and I was happy because of my achievements in that game. But my parents looked utterly defeated, which confused me greatly. You may ask, someone just died at .a, how could you be confused? My answer is, wasn't that person who died in heaven? The literal best place imaginable. Why would anyone be sad? Isn't that selfish and short-sighted? Just because you personally can't see them doesn't mean you should take away from their happiness. And actually, who says you can't see them? I saw my own grandparents in the clouds all the time. Just pray to God and you can talk to them whenever you want. Are you restarted? Okay, obviously the last bit was a recent addition, but I thought along those lines when I was young. I had never experienced death, a personal one. I had no real grasp on its tragedy or finality. How precious every single life is. I could dismiss it because I was Christian. But why couldn't my parents? This mindset extended to other areas of my life. I love my mother, but she was often dismissive of me, particularly when I said I was sick. She would pray, telling me that the tongue has power, quoting scriptures like, "When you are sick, declare you are well." Proverbs 18 verse 21. But when I got worse, instead of praying more, she'd take me to the hospital. I was so confused. Why wait until I was basically immobile to take me to the hospital? Why didn't she just stick to her prayers and her faith? Why the flip-flopping? If you truly believed, wouldn't you just trust God? I never considered that God could fail or say no. My understanding was that everything would work out. But the inconsistencies became clearer to me as my faith weakened under the pressure of difficult questions and biblical contradictions. How could I expect Christians to be consistent when their Bible wasn't? According to the American Atheists Organization, there are over 400 contradictions in the Bible. There are over 2,000 different Bible translations and over 30,000 Christian denominations worldwide. How can anyone claim absolute consistency in such an environment? The Bible never denounces slavery, yet many Christians today would say it's morally wrong. It consistently places women below men and even declares biological functions like menstruation as unclean. Leviticus 15 verse 19. But today, many denominations believe in gender equality. I don't denounce these modern changes, but I can't respect them either. They're inconsistent. Even if someone were to do terrible things, destroying everything in their path, spreading chaos and violence, if they were consistent in their actions, I would still respect them. But, of course, my own moral compass would still label them as a bad person. I can respect bad people, but that doesn't mean I condone or accept their actions. Overall, I just want people to be honest. If you look at the hundreds of Old Testament laws, challenge yourself to explain why some are still valid and others are not. You can't manipulate the book to suit your needs on a whim and expect others not to notice. You can't expect to be respected if you arbitrarily choose which parts of your faith to follow. Obviously, some of the requests are huge endeavors. I won't expect everyone to write a 3,000-word report as to why some Old Testament laws remain while others don't. But at the very least, think about it. When you have time to breathe. But this video isn't just about the Bible. Inconsistencies exist in modern-day society, and they aren't just rooted in religion. A man named Luigi Mangione recently made headlines for allegedly shooting Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, in cold blood. It was a calculated, personal act, one that has sparked both condemnation and unexpected support. Mangione has been charged with multiple offenses, including first-degree murder, and has even been described by some as a folk hero for taking action against what many see as the injustice of the healthcare system. But both sides, whether supporting him or rebuking him, may not hold his actions in high regard if the core principle behind them were to be repeated. What if you were the CEO? What if it were your child? The moment we move past the individual act and start questioning the broader dynamic between Mangione and the CEO, the narrative gets murkier. If we allow one person to justify their violent actions based on a personal vendetta against someone they see as harming society, what happens next? Could we find ourselves in a world where vigilantes decide to impose their own sense of justice on others? Attacking CEOs, judges, teachers, doctors, people in positions of power or influence, becomes a slippery slope. No one has truly justified Mangione's actions in a way that sits comfortably with the values of a society based on law and order. Most people merely approve of the idea, feeling that the CEO deserved it for contributing to an unjust system. But this raises serious ethical questions. Where do we draw the line between acceptable and unacceptable action? What happens when the power of personal perception, of feeling justified, overrides the rule of law? And to those who stand against Mangione, do you not feel the temptation to remove people who contribute to massive suffering while benefiting from it with very little pushback? This CEO profited off the suffering of millions, denying claims, raising premiums, and making medical care inaccessible for many. Even Osama bin Laden was responsible for fewer deaths than him. Yet, when news broke that Obama had ordered his execution, America cheered with relief. It's a troubling double standard. Many Americans see themselves as inherently in the right, justifying their actions in the name of maintaining American interests, while ignoring the moral consequences of their actions, until it negatively impacts them personally. Then the same people may either shift their position or passively continue to benefit from the system they claim to oppose. This paradox is something I think about often. There's a tension between what people say they believe and how they act in practice, especially when they benefit from a system that causes harm. It's inconsistent, it's flawed, and it's a part of the cognitive dissonance that pervades modern society. I do believe that Luigi Mangione should go to jail for his actions. That is the only logical conclusion I can reach based on the principle of justice and rule of law. But I also believe that his actions should spark a larger conversation about the state of our society. We need a better way to challenge systems of power and oppression. Rather than resorting to violence or taking the law into our own hands, we need to remove the power of the upper class by deconstructing the operation of society. Rather than letting our lives be governed by entrenched interests, we should be working toward more equitable systems that don't rely on the exploitation of the vulnerable. In the end, it's about finding a better solution. Don't let your life become a monolith, where one way of thinking dominates everything. Embrace the complexity and, most importantly, the opportunity for change, but do it in a way that is constructive, not destructive.